Something that more progressives need to be doing, especially ones with big platforms, is having more conversations about how we're going to overcome the climate crisis, in addition to all the other environmental crises that we're dealing with. We need to go beyond just using slogans like Green New Deal and talk about movements like the Sunrise Movement without actually understanding the science and what the science says is the best form of alternative energy and how we can implement that realistically into policy. We need to also understand how a lot of these environmental movements have been corrupted and co opted by special interests, corporations, and billionaires who have their own profitable interests. And therefore, they think and they put this implant, this adulterated idea into people's minds that we can continue business as usual without reducing the amount of energy that we use. We definitely need to transition beyond fossil fuels into alternative forms of energy. However, solar and wind have their problems that are not frequently discussed in progressive circles. We rely on taking minerals from poor countries in the global south, and some of it even still relies on fossil fuels. A lot of it can't even be recycled, and so the amount of waste increases. Nuclear energy also has its issues. However, the pros may outweigh the cons. I got the chance to speak to one of the members of my Discord about nuclear energy. He's been sending me a lot of information from reliable scientific sources about nuclear energy and about how other countries have implemented policies that have caused the amount of carbon emissions to reduce. I encourage others to have more conversations like this, and I hope you enjoy and learn a lot. Welcome, everybody, to Frank Analysis. I'm your host, Franco. I am joined today by special guests from the Discord. His name is PCG50. He's here to talk about nuclear energy. He's here to distill some misconceptions some people have about nuclear energy. So just so people know who you are and that you don't have any profitable interest in this and that you aren't getting paid by any special interests, can you tell us more about your background and your political ideology, PCG?
Okay, PCG is my Discord name. I am a medical student from Tunisia. That's a country in North Africa. Well, it's lovely how internet brings people together from different parts of the world. There is that movie for Michael Moore about Planet of the Humans.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, I kind of started being interested in the climate change thing. I mean, typically in summer, I kind of do. I read stuff outside of what's it called? Outside of university subjects.
Mm-hmm.
This year it was climate and energy in general. Look, I may not be in the what's it called? I'm not be in the field of climate by after all, I do medicine, not exactly relevant. And I did all my sources that I used. I can list them. And for the watchers, you will quickly realize they are reputable sources, like people like James Hansen, Ken Cladera, and international agencies. And you'll be the judge for it. My political background, I am a socialist, basically. Uh, I mean, look, guys, I follow the American political scene occasionally, and it's like I feel like I'm kind of old school in the American sense because I believe in unions, I believe in universal policies. I'm not particularly fan of identity politics in general, and um, I think that's it.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a negative view of nuclear energy because of what I heard about what happened in Chernobyl and Fukushima, also about nuclear waste. So did you initially have negative thoughts about nuclear energy, and how did
Not,
they change if you did have these initial negative thoughts about them?
not really. I know it's Fukushima and what's it called?
Chernobyl.
and Chernobyl are, I everyone like know these disasters. The thing is, if you're outside the Western sphere, nuclear, it's not something you have like predisposed fear of it. It's like just another form of energy. You know, it's associated with nuclear weapons, at least to some degree. That's it. So, I mean, if you don't have that stigma from the beginning, it just it goes to you very naturally because you get to realize wind and solar, they are just can't unable to displace fossil fuel. It's like something they cannot do, and we will go into detail eventually. That leaves you with basically very few options. One of them is geothermal and large hydroelectric. Both are excellent and they are clean sources of energy, all of that, but they are locally they are restricted. Not everyone has a large river in the backyard they can dam.
Right.
That leaves us with basically only source of energy, which is nuclear. And the thing is about, and this is not like speculation, because I see this sphere, people like to have this speculation. Maybe, if we have batteries and if we have hydrogen, if that happens and that happens, we will get 100% renewables. When we talk about nuclear, that thing already happened. The only models that ever existed that displaced fossil fuel, at least from electricity generated, has been state-run nuclear programs. This is not like speculation. This is a historical fact. And if we think of climate change, of what's it called, such an existential crisis that we have to act as fast as possible, the logical answer is let's go with proven methods that have worked like maybe 50 years, 60 years, no, 60, 40 years ago. The French nuclear build-up started in the 70s with the nuclear reactors that are designed in the 60s. So you get to understand the gap of potential between nuclear and the renewables. And they managed to basically largely displace fossil fuel from energy production, from electricity production. So, I mean, we are in the 21st century. We have much better technology than that. The most logical step to do, let's do something that worked. Let's not risk our future on something that we know even at this point and in 10 years from now. It cannot possibly displace fossil fuels.
Yeah, I've covered in my show what the problems are with solar and wind energy. When I went over an article by Max Blumenthal calling out fake environmentalists like Bill McKibben, Josh Fox, Naomi Klein, and the Sunrise Movement for trying to censor the Planet of the Humans movie. Although I didn't go into that much detail with the problems with them. I just said that they have some problems, and the Planet of the Humans movie was addressing some of those. But the more I learn, I'll address them into more depth with my videos. But I'm sure you can better explain why you prefer nuclear energy over these other alternative forms of energy. So why is nuclear energy better than solar and wind?
You know, First of all, let's start with the basic, the stuff I know the most. Nuclear energy is basically the best form of energy for Earth, even better than solar and wind. How, you may ask? Solar and wind doesn't produce medically useful isotopes. Even if it doesn't hurt you, unlike nuclear energy, what we call nuclear waste. Some of them are useful isotopes we use in medicine. For instance, iode 131, cesium, tesnium, what else, cobalt. All of these are useful isotopes that you might find used in any hospital. Second, we know it's clean, it doesn't produce any CO2 emission. Thirdly, it's not energy, it's the most energy concentrated form of energy we know. I'm, I mean, it take far less land to produce energy from nuclear than it does from solar or wind. Now we keep talking about the CO2 emission, but we need to recognize that as well, and that can be destructive. And thirdly, from a socialist point of view, and even from a conservative, nature conservative point of view, nuclear takes the least amount of resources because it's not energy diluted. And this, when you build a reactor, at least the modern ones, it can last you there for 80 years. Like you have a structure that goes there for 80 years. Unions can be formed, communities can be formed around it, unlike wind and solar, which it's much difficult to form those with that sources of energy. And look, when we talk about wind and solar, if you go ask these people, what are your models? They will say Germany. I mean, look, this isn't like speculation or something. We know the data. The decarbonization rate of the German transition, it's not even close to the French or the Swedish rate. And we're talking about way different capabilities. So, I mean, we go back to the same point. I mean, if I am that concerned about climate, I should be advocating for a French-style nuclear build-up, not these renewables.
So, how safe is nuclear energy now? Like, how can we prevent accidents like what happened in Chernobyl and Fukushima? What are some advancements that have happened to make nuclear energy safer?
Okay, first of all, let's start with Chernobyl. Chernobyl isn't something that interests us because the you probably guys watch the HBO Chernobyl. In the Western designed reactors, there's something we call a containment dome. What containment dome means is kind of a reinforced concrete structure that goes above the reactor, and in the case of any accident, the content of the reactor doesn't spill into the atmosphere like what happened in Chernobyl. So the models that really concern us are the stuff that happened in Fukushima. You know how much people died in Fukushima,
What was the number?
and people don't realize this is the second worst nuclear disaster. Currently, there is one death associated to Fukushima. By comparison, both the tsunami that happened and the earthquake killed 20,000 plus. I mean, this is the worst disaster of a reactor that like the ones that we have here. And that type of reactor that was built in Fukushima, it's built in the 60s. Now, imagine with me if these are the 60s designs. That we have like a failure. We have like two failures. There's I don't know how many reactors that are currently operating in the world. Maybe more than 200. Now imagine what we can do with the modern technology, because we learned a lot about what happened in Fukushima and in Chernobyl. There are modern designs that have passive safety features. So if there is a problem, they just shut down on their own. You don't have to do anything or any active measure like I don't know, pumping water or whatever they do. And second, about the safety, I mean, there are studies. There is a study for Mr. James Hansen. Nuclear energy saves lives. Clean energy, that's what it does. It displaces fossil fuel. I mean, fossil fuels kill like 10,000 people a day. I mean, for me, it seems like a good trade-off if there is like, even with the Fukushima stuff, there is an incident every 30 years. Instead of 10,000 people dying a day from fossil fuels. But I know some environmentalists may think otherwise.
Yeah, and the number for fossil fuels will increase exponentially as well, because like climate change is only going to keep getting worse and worse every year, and also the biggest contributors to climate change and to fossil fuel emissions is the military, and we're going to war for these natural resources. So yeah, like you bring up a great point about how if there were to be like an accident like Fukushima, it's not, it doesn't even touch the number of people that are going to die as a result of fossil fuel emissions.
Yeah, there is one thing that when we talked about, you mentioned the planet of the human. There is an issue about the fossil fuel that people don't understand, especially the environmentalists, because I see those types. I mean, they don't understand. There are people in the world that still do subsistence farming. There are people that walks into outpatient wards here that doesn't see a doctor until he's about to die. You know, like I mean, there are people in India and Africa. They will eventually have to develop and have their own sources of electricity, and we have options here. Either we provide clean electricity to meet that demand. The option two, they will go with fossil fuel and coal. And coal, for people to realize, a coal plant produces more radiation than a nuclear plant. I know that's astonishing to hear, but that's what coal can do and kills a lot of people. I mean, there's like
Yeah.
some diseases that people don't know right now. There's something like called miner's lung. People
Miners
use,
lung,
I mean,
yeah.
people used to die from it. I mean, these are our options. I mean, we can continue this renewable thing. Look, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to be unfair about it. Sure, I mean, if we're gonna have like a natural gas renewable system, it will be less polluting than coal or pure natural gas system. But is it what we? Is this the kind of solution we want? Is this how we gonna defeat environment by some lukewarmest gradual solutions?
Right, we need to do something now. Um, we're
Some. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we don't act now, then like the temperature is gonna keep increasing. Like right now, our aim is to uh try to not exceed the 1 degree Celsius of increase in temperature. But we have these fake environmentalist group movements like 350.org and Sunrise Movement that are trying to aim for 2 degrees Celsius, even though before, like in the 90s, they were proposing scientists were proposing 1 degree Celsius, nothing more than 1 degree Celsius change. Um, but because these fake environmentalist group movements are corrupted and financed by people who are connected to the fossil fuel industry, that's why they're changing their tune.
I know the IPCC and Mr. Rand's numbers. They look for less than 1.5 degree to 2 degree. That's the best scenario we can aim for.
So
About
nuclear waste can't just be dumped in the environment because it can damage ecosystems as a result of bioaccumulation of toxic levels of plutonium and DNA damage that can lead to cancer and other negative health outcomes. What are some ways that the 21st century technology can deal with nuclear waste?
We have many ways to deal with nuclear. First of all, I mean, I take issue with the problem. We're calling it issue. An issue is something that I don't know. I mean, it's not hurting anyone. Even if we leave the nuclear waste in those concrete caskets, it's not going to hurt anybody. They will just stay there. I don't know. Maybe let's ship all the nuclear waste and put it in one large storage facility. And then what? It's not going to hurt anyone. I mean, when we talk about an issue, something that this is one of the things that people don't realize. Hospitals and medical sector, they are the first cause of artificial radiation to the population. when nuclear reactors aren't even close to the amount of damage my kind is doing to the population. But I mean, we consider it fine and all because there is I mean, we need those kinds of tests to this. I mean, those kind of tests are necessary. About the nuclear waste, first of all, people need to realize how small it is. I can link you pictures of the storage facility in France,
Yes, yes, I'll put it up in the video.
or what's this called? Or even the USA total nuclear waste. It fills the football field. I mean, a country as great as the USA, we can't do something about it.
Right.
And the solutions these people that we are proposing are deep geological storage. What that means is you pick a stable geological site and you dig a hole that is 500 meters deep, and you make a facility where if you put stuff in it, you are sure it's not going to touch or hurt anybody for at least thousands of years. Do you know of any other industrial sector that capable of doing this kind of safety with their waste? I don't know any.
Mm.
I mean, we just dump stuff. That's all we do. I mean, even the numbers of people that are pushing for the renewables, 99% of the renewable waste, which is, by the way, in 400 plus times greater than the nuclear waste, is just dumped.
Mm-hmm.
This dig a hole and dump it there. And lastly, what we consider waste, first of all, we already discussed that there is part of it that it's useful in medical sector, the useful isotopes, and there is the actinide family. I mean, the stuff that is close to the uranium in atomic size, atomic number. No? This stuff can be burned in what we call breeder reactors. There are already reactors like that exist. For instance, the BN 800. There is the Canadian CANDU reactors. They can deal with it as well. They are reactors that are built in the 50s, so you can tell. And lastly, there is what the French do. The French reprocess most of their fuel. Like 96% of the French spent fuel is reprocessed. They have a large facility in La Hague, and they do that there. So as I already showed, and I mean I can put the sources there after that. Look, this is stuff. It's like a technical challenge. It's like when we build this skyscraper, and we say the how we make it so it doesn't just collapse and fall. I know there are challenges, that there are stuff that we can deal with it if there is the political will for that.
So we have better ways of dealing with expired nuclear energy than we do with dealing with solar and wind energy that cannot even be recycled, right?
No, the recycle rate is less than 1%.
Hmm.
I need to stress that number, less than 1%. And I mean, and the amount is way higher than the what's this called of the nuclear waste. So I mean, even at that, and I hear people talking about nuclear waste. It's basically concerned already. We have so many bigger problem than caskets that filled with waste that doesn't hurt anyone. You know.
Yeah, and then they can be stored for thousands of years, right? And by that time, humans can figure out a way to deal with it better if we do like accumulate a bunch of them, right?
Oh, they don't have to. I mean, they are like 500 meters a safe and stable geological site. They will stay there. Maybe they will have to move them to somewhere else, but they can just leave them there. Why bother? I mean, look, there is a lot of stuff in the what's it called the. I'm sorry. What the thing is about nuclear, people, there is like something that people in the USA doesn't realize. These programs I'm talking about, they are like the New Deal in Sweden, in Belgium, in France. Social democratic governments decided, you know what? Fossil fuel prices are tripled since the Israeli-Egyptian war, Yom Kippur war. We will have to move away from fossil fuel. And they did it through state-run programs, the Mesmer program, and they ended up with, an impressive nuclear fleet. If we are talking about doing a new deal, I mean, the New Deal was that. There were state-run programs. They weren't handouts to private corporations like what happened in Germany. I mean, if you're a socialist, it seems to me, maybe, yes, maybe, making a 2 trillion plus handout to private corporation isn't in the best interest of the USA. Maybe that's just me.
So some of the components in nuclear waste, like plutonium, it can be used. It can be used to make nuclear weapons. So with the current system that we have in the U.S. and also how that influences the other countries, wouldn't this have potential for making a large amount of nuclear weapons?
Yes, it does. I'm not going to, but we already have a large amount of nuclear weapons. This is one of the contradictions about nuclear. We have the weapons. The weapons USA have maybe 5,000 heads. I'm not sure how many. This is what I mean. We have the weapons, but we are not using the what's this called, the energy for peaceful means. And B, even the nuclear weapons, there are two programs when we talk about that were two deals that were done between Russia and USA to limit the nuclear weapon stock, atoms for energy, and there is a program initiated in 2000s. In both programs, what we do is we take the nuclear grade material and we dilute it, and then we use it to produce energy. It is a chance, it is a way. I mean, there is a possibility that we have the next nuclear deals, we have nuclear deals to eliminate nuclear weapon grade material and use that fossil fuel to make energy. It's like a win-win situation, you know. And about that, France, for instance, just reprocess all its plutonium. They make fuel out of it. I mean, if the French can do it, I mean, we can do it with Russia and the USA. There was a program like that, the BN 800 reactor I talked about before. That was a program between, I think it started in the end of Clinton year. The goal of that program is to reduce weapon grade material in both USA and Russia. Russia made its part of the deal, and they made a nuclear reprocess plant, and they started building these kind of reactors, the BN 800. Meanwhile, USA didn't. What's this called? Uh, I'm sorry, I lost the English word. Didn't. Sorry. Didn't uphold their part of the deal. Look, what I don't know what people are suggesting we do with the nuclear weapons. We're not just going to bury them in a hole or something. They can just be then digged out, and the nuclear material enriched again, and we end up with nuclear weapons again. The only way to permanently destroy nuclear weapons is to not only destroy them, but to make good use out of them is through nuclear energy. That's all.
Yeah, our environmental policy, as that evolves into something that's more progressive, more clean, that has to coincide with our evolution of foreign policy and peace deals. So that it all has to be tied together. Um, and as we've been discussing, it seems like nuclear would be it would be cleaner and more efficient to deal with than wind and solar, considering how nuclear is more recyclable than wind and solar. And also with nuclear, if we implement that with social policies, um, there's less of a corporate interest. We've reduced the our interest in fossil fuels, so then there's less interest to invade other countries for all these resources, right?
Yeah. First of all, one step at a time. The French model, it's a state-run, federally owned, the federally owned electricity corporation that builds and produces nuclear energy. That's all. Uh, I mean, when I see the writing of people like Naomi Klein and also this Green New Deal is something so far-reaching. It includes everything. It includes like some major changing in our society and all of that. It almost seems to me that they are using climate issue as a vehicle to have their policies implemented, their vision implemented. Look, I mean, then what I am, not me, I mean, they are, what's it called? They are writers. I don't want to butcher their names. They are like names I only read, but I never say, In Jacobin and Earth, what we are proposing as an alternative is something very simple. We nationalizing of electricity sector companies, consolidate them under federally owned corporation that already exists, like Tennessee Valley Authority. They are the real legacy of the New Deal. Then we have them build nuclear reactors as fast as possible. That's it. I mean, it's not something complicated. It's not far-reaching. It's not anything. It's a very simple and incredibly achievable policy. We can mandate these new created jobs must be unionized. That's it. And we can have like the French do a processing facility and a permanent storage facility because USA at this moment doesn't have any.
So which countries have the best models for nuclear energy that we should be following?
The most model that interests USA is France. The French model is the fastest decarbonization rate ever recorded in human history. There's nothing better than French model. If we are speaking on the strictly basis of fighting climate change and reducing fossil fuel usage and CO2 emission, these are numbers held by the French model. They did it for other purposes. They wanted to get rid of dependency of fossil fuel because of geostrategic reasons. You can't be a giant country like France that doesn't produce a lot of fossil fuel and relies on something as essential as electricity on imported fossil fuel. So they did that. And the USA is like the strongest country. I mean, has the best economy in the world. It has like so much capabilities that the French has nothing compared to the USA.
Yeah.
The French can do it. I can only imagine what the USA can do with
We
modern
could be
technology.
leading. They could be
Sorry?
leading the charge. Right.
Look, there is the most important issue with the renewables, and this is something that people need to always remember. If you ever talk with someone that is pushing for renewable, they will talk about the JAMA model. There is a site online. It's called Electricity Map. Publicity Map or
People should check it sometime and see Germany, this the great marvel of renewable energy. You will see, first of all, the wind and solar goes up and goes down. And there isn't wind or solar, what will happen? There are two things that will happen. First of all, the lignite coal, which is the dirtiest source of energy, will start providing backup. Natural gas will provide backup. And then, if you look at the German map, you see those arrows coming from neighboring countries. And then they will import electricity from neighboring countries. They have, like, for instance, France in particular, which have nuclear, a lot of nuclear. They can help out Germany when they don't have when the wind isn't doing it. You know, in USA, you don't have like the French a country called France right around the border to back you up if you just go full renewables. You have two options: A, blackouts like what happened in California. B, you have to build fossil fuel backup. And how much fossil fuel backup you have to build? You have to back it up one to one ratio, up to 100% fossil fuel backup. Look, for me, this is not acceptable. There are people that think that nah, it's okay, and eventually we will have batteries. There will be hydrogen. There will be whatever other way to basically steal taxpayer money. That's it. Let's call it what it is. Look, if in 10 years Germany still one of the most polluting country in Europe, there is no reason to imagine that USA, which even have more entrenched interest and fossil fuel company than Germany, will do any better. Okay. And second, this is one of the most baffling thing about the German energy vendor. This program was started in 2000s. The chancellor before Merkel, Gerhard Schroeder, who is currently the CEO of a fossil fuel company, of a natural gas company, by the way, with in the coalition with the Green Party. They did this program, and first, it attacked nuclear. It didn't attack coal. Don't make this mistake. It attacked and killed, and is in process of killing nuclear energy in Germany. I mean, if the program is trying to kill, you can think whatever you want about nuclear energy, but if your objective is to kill nuclear energy before killing fossil fuel and eliminating coal production, I mean, you're part of a problem. I don't have anything, you know. And secondly, Gerhard Schroeder is one of the most neoliberal pieces of shit in German history. In German history, it's like, you know, Clinton, or the Clintonites in USA, or Blair in UK. I mean, what kind of an idiot would go? You know what? I like that guy. I'm gonna do what they did, and then it was reinforced by Merkel. She's a conservative. I mean, this is the kind of policy we want to do as a socialist, or even backup. This is the kind of policy maybe the Democratic Party will do, not socialists or not democratic socialists or whatever you want to call yourself on the left.
All right, PCG50. Thank you so much for your time here. I appreciate all the information you shared. And for everybody else, don't forget to stay informed. There will be more talks like this about environmental policy coming your way.